Whether White House officials like it or not, Jim Acosta of CNN is always ready to ask the next question. This morning, our Chip Reed has some questions for him.
Do you mind telling us?
I'm trying to answer your question.
Okay, well,
I politely waited, and I even called on you despite the fact that you interrupted me.
It's become a familiar scene.
You said something from the podium. Was it accurate or not? That's all we want to know.
I work day in, day out with the majority of you here in the room. I think you all know I'm an honest person.
The White House briefing room as battleground.
You're saying something that's just patently untrue. I mean, obviously
Stating their policy positions
but
is not
Democrats
patently
don't. But
untrue.
Democrats away. That's not
And
an
often
invasion.
it's the press versus the president.
One other question: are you worried?
That's enough. That's enough.
Mr. President,
That's enough.
Ask one
Jim Acosta, chief White House correspondent for CNN, has had his fair share of heated exchanges.
I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person.
That exchange led the White House to revoke Acosta's press pass. CNN took it to court.
Go back to work.
And Acosta is back on the job.
Donald Trump.
Whether he's a villain, a hero, or something in between, Jim Acosta is not about to take a back seat in the briefing room.
There are two basic criticisms of you, even from some of your colleagues and certainly from the White House. And one of them is that you grandstand.
I'm looking at an overgrown infant.
He thinks he's the Rosa Parks of the press corps.
That you sometimes make the news rather than report on the news. Is that a valid criticism?
Well, I know folks are going to say that. I look at it as I'm doing my job. And I see this as a very serious moment in our nation's history. And I think to some extent we have been trying to figure out the best way to cover this president. And
do you think you've found the best way to cover him?
I think
confront him.
I think I've found the
challenge
best.
Him?
I think I found the best way for me.
But his way has not only brought attention to himself, but to his network.
The man who sent the pipe bombs to CNN and other Democratic targets in the fall of 2018, on his social media account, he was directing death threats at me, something along the lines of "you're next, you're the enemy of America," and so on.
No.
You know, my sense of it is that what started off as an act for the president, calling us fake news, calling us the enemy of the people.
CNN is fake news. I don't take questions from CNN. John Roberts of Fox.
And so on, has gotten out of control, and they don't know how to reel it back in.
In his new book, titled The Enemy of the People, A Dangerous Time to Tell the Truth in America, Acosta recounts his past few years on the political beat, first covering candidate Trump, then President Trump.
The title of the book, The Enemy of the People, he has called you personally the enemy of the people, has he not?
He did, yeah, he did at that press conference right after the midterms.
When you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President.
Talk about what we've been through over these last few years, not just during the first 2 years of this administration, but also the campaign. People forget about what happened during the campaign.
If these people were honest, they'd show this arena. Why don't you show the arena, folks?
You know, the Trump press corps would walk into an arena and thousands of people would start shouting at us.
We are in a rigged system, and a big part of the rigging are these dishonest people in the media.
Then candidate Donald Trump would refer to us as the disgusting news media, the dishonest news media, liars, scum, and so on.
So is that why you decided to write a book? Did you feel people needed to know, or did you also feel perhaps you needed to explain yourself in some way?
Well, I wanted to do both, but mainly, Chip, you know, my feeling is, and I feel strongly about this, I don't want my children to grow up in a country where the press is called the enemy of the people. It's as simple as that.
Jim Acosta is the son of a Cuban immigrant father and an American-born mother. Despite his heritage, though, immigration is not the only issue that made him want to delve deeper, or, as his critics might say, go on the attack. A major turning point, says Acosta, was the president's reaction to the violent white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, in August 2017.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
I think that was a a very important moment, not just for the press, but for the American people. I don't believe that there are two sides to a story when it's a matter of right versus wrong. It just doesn't work that way. And I think that in this era, reporters have been thrust into a position where, you know, we are not only calling balls and strikes, but we are calling fouls.
Good afternoon.
These days, the White House briefings are few and far between.
Here, this is what has replaced the White House briefing. We don't have briefings anymore. We do this in the driveway instead.
Making it harder for the media to call any of the shots.
How often does Sarah Sanders do briefings now?
Since the beginning of this year, I believe she's only done 2 briefings.
But you've been a critic of those press briefings. Is it really a big loss not to have them?
I think it is a big loss because, you know, I mean, almost as important as what they say in the briefings in response to our questions is what they don't say and how they don't want to answer the questions and avoid the questions. And so I would love to see those briefings come back. I get passionate about it, and maybe people say, oh, you're outside your lane and so on. But it's just, I don't want that way of life to change for us. And so, yeah, it's worth fighting for. And yeah, it's worth shouting questions to make sure that they're held accountable on this sort of thing. I want my kids to grow up in a country where, you know, we can still shout questions at the president. You know, he can take it. He's the president, right?
He can handle it.
He can handle it.